In the heart of Shandong Province, lies the city of Jinan, a place where ancient traditions breathe alongside the pulse of modern life. Here, the streets echo with footsteps of vendors, students, and workers weaving through a labyrinth of markets and narrow alleys. Each day unfolds quietly, wrapped in the comforting rhythm of family ties, local festivals, and whispered prayers to ancestors. The winter of 1996 arrived with a quiet chill that settled into the bones of the city. Snow-dusted rooftops and bare trees stood like silent sentinels as Jinan prepared for the approaching Chinese New Year, a time of reunion, hope, and renewal. Yet, beneath this serene surface, unseen fissures were cracking the fragile normalcy. Among the city's millions, 5 ordinary men, Li Guang, Wang Qiang, Zhang Wei, Du Hongwei, and Lin Dang, shared more than friendship. They were pillars of their families, faces familiar in local tea houses and factory floors. They carried hopes of better futures and the weight of everyday struggles. To their loved ones, they were sons, brothers, and friends, each weaving their own story of diligence and modest dreams. Li Guang worked in a local bank, his careful hands handling the city's hopes. Brothers-in-law Wang Qiang and Du Hongwei toiled side by side in a machinery factory, their bond both familial and forged in hardship. Zhang Wei, an accountant with quiet ambition, and Lin Dang, a childhood friend, rounded out this circle of trust. But then, one by one, the familiar rhythms faltered. First, Li Guang missed a dinner he never explained. Days later, Wang Qiang and Du Hongwei vanished without word or trace, followed swiftly by Zhang Wei and Lin Dang. Within 48 hours, 5 lives disappeared, leaving a city gripped by disbelief. Whispers swirled in narrow alleys and tea houses. Was this a strange coincidence, or was something far darker at play? The bond between these men hinted at deeper mysteries, secrets hidden in the shadows of everyday life. Local police were summoned, their investigation hampered by scarce evidence and wary witnesses. The city's sprawling size and limited surveillance of the 1990s China made every lead a challenge, forcing detectives to rely on painstaking interviews and intuition. Amid the confusion, one chilling detail surfaced: a suspicious bank transfer, 1 million yuan moved between accounts linked to the missing men, hinting at greed and betrayal beneath the surface of friendship. The families, caught between hope and despair, struggled to reconcile the idea of loved ones fleeing without warning or abandoning their children and homes. The silence of the vanished echoed painfully through quiet rooms and cold hearts. Days melted into weeks with no answers. The vibrant city life masked an undercurrent of grief and growing fear, as the missing men became ghosts haunting the collective consciousness of Jinan. In the stillness, the fragility of life revealed itself, how swiftly fortune can crumble and how ordinary days may hide the edges of catastrophe. This tragedy beckons us to peer beyond facades, to question the safety of our familiar streets and the faces we greet daily. What secrets do our neighbors carry behind closed doors? Fear gnaws quietly, unsettling hearts and minds. The unknown lurks in silent corners, reminding all that darkness may dwell anywhere, even among the people we call family. Yet, in the midst of dread, a call to courage arises, a call to seek truth, to confront shadows, and to refuse the silence that enables darkness to grow. So, we ask ourselves, what lies behind these vanishings? What stories of loyalty, betrayal, and desperation are hidden beneath the ordinary lives lost to the night? 2 years had slipped by since the unsettling disappearances cast their shadow over Jinan, but the city had yet to forget. Amid the quiet neighborhoods, a young couple, Toi Vin and Nak Phuong, moved into a modest apartment, eager to build their life, unaware of the chilling secret locked behind a forbidding door. Their new landlord, Ha Dong Thang, was a man wrapped in mystery, a stranger to most but a figure casting long shadows. He warned them firmly never to open the western room, securing the door with a rusty lock that seemed ancient as the city itself. At first, the couple obeyed without question. In Chinese culture, respect for boundaries is a deep-rooted value, yet beneath the surface, a quiet, creeping curiosity began to stir, an impulse as natural as the breath of winter wind. Days bled into weeks, but the silence of that forbidden room grew heavier, a weight pressing on their minds and hearts. Eventually, fear mingled with resolve, a desire to know the truth outweighed the old warnings. As the door creaked open, a wave of decay engulfed them, the air thick with the stench of forgotten years, a smell that clawed at their lungs and stirred deep, primal dread. Inside those sacks, carefully concealed beneath a thin concrete slab, lay unthinkable secrets, the dismembered remains of 5 human lives, hidden from a city that had long searched in vain. To understand such brutality, one must peer into the abyss of the human psyche, where cruelty and cold calculation extinguish all traces of empathy. The methodical nature of the crime revealed itself in every detail: bones severed with precision, flesh stripped away, remains concealed with chilling efficiency, as if the perpetrator had rehearsed this dark ritual. Forensic examination later revealed blunt force trauma consistent with heavy strikes, signs that the victims, once vibrant and alive, met a violent and sudden end. But more haunting than the physical wounds was the betrayal: 5 men betrayed by a trust once thought unbreakable, their friendships and families shattered by a single, dark hand. What drove a man to such extremes? Fear, greed, jealousy, or the silent desperation born of unfulfilled dreams and crushing societal pressures? The revelation shattered the community's sense of safety. Neighbors who once shared tea and smiles now exchanged fearful whispers, eyes darting nervously behind curtains. For Toi Vin and Nak Phuong, the horror was personal. Their home became a prison of dread, torn between loyalty to their landlord and the unbearable truth they had uncovered. This hidden room, a silent witness to unspeakable acts, stands as a grim reminder: behind locked doors, human darkness may fester, untouched, unseen, and unchecked. As the city grappled with this revelation, it faced a timeless truth: every society hides its secrets, but healing begins when light pierces the darkness. Now the question lingers: how many more locked doors hold untold stories? How many lives vanish quietly, their voices forever lost in silence? In the quiet, dim-lit corners of Jinan's bustling cityscape, a man named Ha Dongpang lived a seemingly ordinary life. To neighbors, he was unassuming, blending into the urban rhythm. But beneath his calm facade lurked a mind filled with calculating ambition, a mind that harbored shadows dark enough to consume lives. His presence, once unnoticed, would soon cast a long and terrible shadow over the city. Ha Dongpang was a skilled accountant, adept at numbers and calculations. He earned respect professionally, yet beneath his calm exterior, greed festered quietly. The desire for wealth twisted his morality, and his ambitions blurred the lines between right and wrong. In his world, trust was a currency, easily traded and just as easily destroyed. His descent into darkness was not sudden but gradual, a slow corrosion of conscience under the weight of temptation. What began as small acts of deception evolved into cold, calculated schemes, each step pulling him deeper into a web of lies and violence, far from the orderly life he once led. In 1996, a covered transfer of 1 million yuan marked a turning point. The sum moved through hidden accounts linked to He Dongthang, signaling a gamble that was far more sinister than it appeared. This shadow transaction tied him irrevocably to the 5 missing men and ignited the chain of tragic events that would follow. The missing men, once friends and colleagues, were connected by more than just personal ties. Their fates became intertwined with He Dongthang's greed and calculated malice. Trust dissolved into betrayal as dark secrets emerged from beneath the surface of their daily lives. He Dongthang's world was a mask of normalcy, his public persona concealing a ruthless mind. Behind closed doors, he plotted with cold precision, driven by an insatiable hunger that knew no bounds and no remorse. The crimes he committed transcended mere greed. They were acts of calculated silencing, removing those who stood between him and the fortune he craved. The precision of his actions spoke of a mind that was methodical and chillingly devoid of empathy. The killings were swift and brutal, executed with chilling efficiency. 5 vibrant lives were extinguished and hidden beneath layers of concrete and deception, their stories silenced beneath the weight of darkness that now gripped the city. But even the most meticulous plans cannot erase fear. He Dongthang's paranoia grew, haunting him with shadows of his own making. The constant weight of his crimes pressed down, unraveling his resolve as law enforcement closed in. He became a ghost in the sprawling cities of China, weaving through crowded train stations and bustling streets, changing identities and hiding from justice. But no matter how far he ran, the truth hunted him relentlessly. He Dongthang's mind was a battlefield of guilt and denial. On cold nights atop city rooftops, he wrestled with his conscience, his hands trembling, cigarette smoke fading into the vast darkness, as the weight of his deeds bore down. Captured in 2009 in Jinan Province, his arrest marked the beginning of reckoning. The man who once lived in shadows now faced the unforgiving light of justice, and a city's collective sorrow found a focal point for its grief. In court, He Dongthang's complex nature unraveled, a man whose brilliance had been corrupted by greed, his vulnerabilities masked by a cold defiance that chilled even the most seasoned observers. His defense argued mental instability and drug influence, pleading for mercy. Yet the weight of evidence, financial records, forensic proof, witness testimony, was undeniable, painting a portrait of calculated crime. Through He Dongthang's story, we glimpse the fragile line where intellect meets depravity, a cautionary tale of how unchecked ambition and moral decay can devastate lives and communities. As the case reached its climax, Jinan's collective breath was held tight. The courthouse, a traditional Chinese structure adorned with red lanterns, became the epicenter of a story that had gripped the city for years. He Dongthang, once a respected accountant, now faced the weight of his darkest actions. The trial was more than a judicial proceeding, it was a public reckoning, where the community sought answers, accountability, and the hope for healing after unspeakable loss. Inside the courtroom, an atmosphere thick with tension prevailed. Families of the missing men sat with expressions etched by grief and exhaustion, clutching one another for strength. The air was heavy with the collective pain of those who had lost not just loved ones, but also their sense of safety and trust. Spectators, reporters, and officials alike absorbed every word, every gesture, all eager to witness justice in motion amid the haunting memories that shadowed the room. He Dongthang sat impassive, his face a mask of inscrutability. His eyes flickered with cold detachment as the prosecution methodically unveiled the harrowing details of his crimes. The meticulously orchestrated betrayal, the calculated murders of his closest friends and colleagues, all laid bare for the city to confront. His demeanor revealed nothing of remorse, only the haunting emptiness of a man who had severed his humanity. The prosecution's case was a chilling narrative of greed's corrosive power. It revealed how Ha Dongthang manipulated financial records, exploited trust, and coldly eliminated those who stood in his path to wealth. Evidence included detailed financial transactions, CCTV footage, and forensic reports, painting a picture of a man consumed by ambition to the point of moral ruin, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. Ha Dongthang's defense team fought back fiercely, arguing his client's deteriorated mental state, drug dependency, and impaired judgment. They portrayed a man undone by circumstances beyond control, pleading for leniency and understanding. Their impassioned appeals sought to humanize the accused, attempting to shift focus from cold facts to questions of compassion and mental health in a complex legal battle. But the jury, composed of citizens who carried the weight of the city's anguish, remained steadfast. They weighed the evidence against the defense's claims and felt the silent voices of the 5 men who never returned, their lives stolen and stories silenced. The verdict was not just a judgment, but a tribute to the victims and a statement of societal values. The judge's pronouncement was resolute: life imprisonment. The sentence echoed the community's condemnation of betrayal and cruelty so profound it had shaken the city's foundations. This decision was not merely legal, it was a moral boundary, a declaration that such darkness would be contained and remembered, ensuring that no voice from this tragedy would be forgotten. For the families of the victims, the verdict brought a bittersweet relief that justice had been served, tempered by the enduring ache of absence. Tears mixed with quiet smiles as they embraced one another, knowing that while the wounds would never fully heal, the city had acknowledged their pain and stood with them in remembrance. Still, beneath the surface of this resolution lay deeper questions that no sentence could answer. Could a lifetime behind bars ever restore trust? Could justice mend the fractures left in the hearts of the betrayed? These questions lingered, a somber reminder of the limits of law against human suffering. The trial illuminated the shadows within human nature, how desperation and greed, when left unchecked, can consume souls and corrode the bonds of friendship. The story of Ha Dongthang served as a cautionary tale, a reflection of the darkness that can lurk behind even the most familiar faces. The city's discourse expanded beyond the courtroom, with conversations turning to those silent stories that remain hidden in the shadows. How many more suffer in silence, their pain unseen? The tragedy sparked a collective reflection on vigilance, community responsibility, and the need to break the cycles of secrecy. Families of the lost men emerged as beacons of resilience, their dignity and strength inspiring hope. Despite the wounds inflicted, they embodied the spirit of endurance and community, refusing to be defined solely by tragedy, but by their capacity to heal and advocate. Their voices called for social change, a plea for better education, stronger protections, and community support to prevent others from suffering similar fates. Their pain transformed into activism, igniting a broader movement toward awareness and prevention. As the courtroom doors closed on this chapter, the city carried forward the lessons hard-earned. Justice, it became clear, is not a destination but a continuous pursuit, one requiring vigilance, compassion, and an unyielding commitment to protect the vulnerable. The next scene will explore how the city's soul began to heal, the reflections cast by this case and the hopeful paths forged toward a safer, more compassionate future. The tragedy of Ha Dongthang and the 5 lost souls echoed far beyond courtroom walls. It stirred the city of Jinan to confront uncomfortable truths, the fragility of trust, the corrosive power of greed, and the vulnerabilities hidden beneath everyday life. This dark chapter became a mirror reflecting not just individual evil, but collective challenges faced by society. Greed, once a silent force, revealed its destructive nature, eating away at bonds of kinship, friendship, and community. It not only shattered lives but corroded the very fabric of human dignity and moral compass. The city's collective soul wrestled with how ambition, when untethered, can lead to devastation. This case illuminated the hidden vulnerabilities in ordinary lives, economic hardships, social pressures, and the silent struggles that go unnoticed. Families like those affected stood as living testaments to resilience, but their suffering urged the city to ask, how many more endure pain without a voice? The ripple effect reached far beyond individual homes. Conversations in community centers and tea houses turned to calls for vigilance, transparency, and social accountability. The tragedy fueled a determination to protect the vulnerable and to confront injustice wherever it lurked. Education emerged as the city's beacon, the essential tool for prevention and empowerment. Schools began incorporating lessons on ethics, empathy, and social responsibility, hoping to inoculate the next generation against corruption and despair. Yet systemic challenges lingered: poverty, inequality, and sometimes a culture of silence that allowed wrongs to fester unchecked. These obstacles reminded citizens that social change requires not only laws but collective courage and compassion. The tragedy forced the city's institutions to reflect on accountability, not just of individuals, but of the systems charged with protection and justice. Public calls for reform gained strength, urging transparency and better oversight to prevent future failures. Many citizens grappled with a haunting question: how could such evil remain hidden for so long? This reflection sparked community-led initiatives aimed at increasing awareness, strengthening neighborhood ties, and empowering citizens to act. Stories began to emerge of other silent victims, faces that had been forgotten, pains long ignored. These narratives became a rallying cry for a society committed to shedding light on shadows and giving voice to the voiceless. Social leaders and activists stepped forward, advocating for reforms and community programs dedicated to prevention, education, and support. Their efforts created new platforms for dialogue and healing. But meaningful change begins with individuals. Every choice to act with honesty, every voice raised against injustice, and every hand extended in kindness contributes to a safer, more just society. As the city slowly healed, it embraced the interconnectedness of its people, a reminder that true strength lies in compassion, transparency, and unity in the face of adversity. The shadows cast by this tragedy have become a catalyst, inspiring a collective vow to protect the vulnerable, cherish life, and nurture a community where justice shines as both shield and light. In our final reflection, we recognize that from the deepest darkness, light can emerge, a light fueled by awareness, empathy, and a shared commitment to a better future. As the city of Jinan begins to heal from the wounds left by tragedy, its people carry with them a renewed sense of purpose, a commitment to nurture hope, restore trust, and build communities where every life is honored and protected. The memories of those lost are preserved not only in stone and ceremony but in the hearts of a city determined to learn and grow. Memorials bloom with flowers and lanterns, quiet places where reflection and remembrance mingle. Grief, though heavy, has transformed into a catalyst for compassion. Community groups rally to support victims' families and advocate for social reforms aimed at prevention and healing. Each act of kindness, each voice raised for justice, stitches together the fabric of a more resilient society, one that values empathy as much as law, and humanity as much as order. Education continues to be the city's beacon, teaching future generations not just knowledge, but the virtues of empathy, responsibility, and courage to confront injustice wherever it arises. Slowly, the city rebuilds, restoring not just buildings and streets, but the trust between neighbors, and the faith in a shared future where darkness does not prevail. The lessons of the past are etched deeply into the city's conscience, a reminder that vigilance, compassion, and community are the pillars upon which safety stands. To the families affected, the journey of healing is ongoing. Yet their courage and resilience inspire all to stand for justice, human dignity, and hope. And to you, our viewers, this story is a call to action, a reminder that the safety and compassion of our communities depend on each one of us. Let us be vigilant, kind, and courageous, champions for the vulnerable, defenders of justice, and builders of a future where no shadow can hide. This story reminds us, from tragedy can rise a collective strength, a new dawn where light outshines darkness, and humanity prevails. Every voice matters, every action counts. Together, we shape a world where justice, compassion, and peace are more than ideals, they are reality. As we close this chapter, we invite you to reflect, share, and act, because change begins with us all, here and now. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Please share your thoughts below. How can we build safer, kinder communities? Your voice is the light that guides us forward. Remember to like, subscribe, and continue walking with us as we explore stories that teach, heal, and inspire. Until next time, keep your hearts open, your spirits strong, and your commitment unwavering. This is more than a story, it is a call to action, a shared promise to honor life, pursue justice, and build a brighter tomorrow. What role will you play in creating a world where every life is valued, every voice heard, and every shadow dispelled? This journey ends here, but our shared path toward justice and compassion continues, together, always.